Canada is intensifying its crackdown on the Freedom Convoy after truckers protested COVID restrictions shut down part of a major international crossing known as the Ambassador Bridge. You've probably heard of it by now. And as similar convoys are popping up all over Europe and other parts of the world, the Department of Homeland Security is now monitoring reports that they could spread here. I'm Harris Faulkner. This is Outnumbered. Today, I'm with in studio Emily Compagno and Kayleigh McEnany. And Rebel Communications CEO and Democratic campaign consultant Laura Fink is one of our guests today. It's her very first time on Outnumbered, so good to see you here. And in the center seat, former Utah congressman and Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz. We're going to get at it now. The Freedom Convoy is now having major implications outside of Canada, with similar protests picking up steam in France, England, Spain, the Netherlands, New Zealand as well. It's also snarling traffic on the U.S. Ambassador Bridge between Detroit and Windsor, Ontario. And that wound up forcing Ford to shut down its plant in the Motor City because its car parts couldn't get through the blocked border crossing. And this comes as the Department of Homeland Security is now tracking reports of a potential truck convoy in America, one that could even try to disrupt the Super Bowl. Last hour, however, because sometimes if you just go to the source and you ask people, they'll talk to you and they'll tell you what's coming. Let's watch.
I think this coming Sunday for the Super Bowl, I think that's a little misinformation that's being played. It's not really that soon, but it's going to come here. The guys in America are going to show the world what we can do. Again, we're the land of the free. God bless America, and God bless these drivers for everything they've done and what they will do.
You know what I loved about talking to Brian Isley about, Jason, was the fact of knowing his place in the world. He said to the audience of the Faulkner Focus, truckers rule the world. You don't get your things, and what's your life going to be like? I actually was stunned because he's absolutely right. And so for them to walk on this cause, it's interesting to watch it because there will be some blowback. There will be some traffic and some blockage and so on and so forth.
I think most Americans probably just want to be left alone. And if you look at the heroes, as we started the COVID pandemic and all the problems, they were our first responders, the nurses. They were the parents that were suddenly having to homeschool and take care of their kids. And they were the truckers that were out there doing their lives. But here we are 2 years later, and I think they're absolutely fed up with these mandates and mask mandates and passports and other things. And so when that mass of people, led by the truckers now, that can go out and take their trucks, take their tools of their trade, and be able to express themselves in a peaceful way, it just shows that there are some real tone-deaf people out there who won't even talk to these people and understand the peril that they're going through. For Justin Trudeau to not even talk to these people is just wrong. And for the Democrats and the woke crowd that thinks that, hey, you know, these are really bad people and all that, shame on you. The truckers have never been the problem. They're the heart of America. And my guess is they're the heart of Canada, too, because they do a tough job. And when we needed them at the pinnacle of when we needed them, they were there doing their job when we didn't know how safe or how dangerous it was. They were out on the road delivering our goods.
Yeah, we didn't even know. We called them essential, and they certainly still are. You know what's really interesting, and Laura, I want to make sure that we get it right? That this is not anti-vaccine, and that's something that Brian Isley and I were just talking about, and when you report it, you want to say it's anti-vaccine mandate. And Jason put it beautifully, mandating anything at this point. Let's mandate that they get what they need so that they can continue to do their jobs. Most of them, and I was reading 90% of the truckers there are already vaccinated. So this has nothing to do with that. But you're asking them to kind of be in a club, if you will, that you set the rules for, and they're saying no to that. What are your thoughts on it, Laura?
Well, I think we have to determine who this really is, because as you said, Harris, this has been about vaccines, and that's from the truckers' mouths themselves. And 90% of the truckers are already vaccinated.
And I will say about mandates.
No, but 90% of them are I understand. But 90% of the truckers are vaccinated, but 90% of the truckers don't support this protest. This is a minority, a loud and vocal minority of truckers that have protested this. And I respect this. They're borrowing a page from the Teamsters playbook. But what I would say to this, be very careful, because you have to have the public on your side. More than 80% of Canadians are vaccinated, similar numbers in the U.S. You don't have the public on your side. You can't get away with inconveniencing them, stopping small businesses, and really throwing a wrench in things for your minority opinion and cause. So I would say, to be successful, they better be aware of the public and what the public thinks, and not only that, what other truckers think.
All right. So Laura, I don't want to conflate two things, because I've seen, I think, what you're reading, the 90%. And so the assumption is that if 90% of them are vaccinated, then 90% must be against this. Well, actually, those two things don't necessarily go together. Some of the very people who are protesting are vaccinated, so they'd be part of that 90%, which makes what you're saying.
Harris?
In reality, yes,
I mean,
that's
this
true.
is a true minority. It's a small but vocal minority.
But some of the ones who are actually protesting mandates, because it's a slippery slope when you mandate things. We're already seeing that with school masking for children.
There's still a minority of truckers.
They're a minority of those truckers. Do you have a data point, Laura?
Do I have a data point? Do I have a data? Yes, they're all vaccinated.
Okay,
and the Teamsters Union,
Laura,
which represents
I'm vaccinated. I'm vaccinated, and I'm against the mandates. I do have a data point for you, Laura.
That's okay. That's not my point.
This is the data point. The GoFundMe page.
No, but it's a point that you made.
But let's talk about the
page was approaching, before it was shut down, $10 million of funds raised. That is more than every major. Let me finish, Laura. I sat patiently.
But where's it coming from, Kayleigh?
That is more than every single Canadian federal political party in the last quarter of 2021. You don't have a data point. I do.
Here's a data point for you. The Teamsters are against it and have said that this is in violation. The Teamsters represent the majority of truckers in Canada, and that is a union where they listen to the worker. Yeah, but they have to listen to their worker voices.
Laura, one thing that we have to do on this program is that we have to kind of give each other a little beat, because you're on remotes, and I want to make sure that we argue with respect. So you brought up a point. Do you know where the money is coming from? It is a GoFundMe situation. So yeah, they can tell you where the money is coming from. And the big point has been that they have now taken that money, GoFundMe, and decided that they want to spend it on other things, that they don't want to spend it on the cause of helping the truckers, because they've got a political foot in this game. So you've opened a little bit of a Pandora's box with that, but I wanted to give you some information on that. Let's go to Emily now.
Yeah, I will just say that, hearing that point of view, unfortunately, to me, reflects, frankly, the bias and that sort of overgeneralized narrative we're hearing from the left and from the mainstream media, as well as some Canadian leadership. For example, Mayor Drew Dilkin, who said, which is the mayor of the Canadian town that borders the bridge, the Ambassador Bridge to the U.S., he said, quote, "We are not dealing all with rational actors." He said, quote, "Police are doing what is right by taking a moderate approach, trying to sensibly work where everyone can walk away, nobody can get hurt, and the bridge can open. I will be brutally honest. You're trying to have a rational conversation. Not everyone is rational." This on the heels as well of Justin Trudeau calling this Nazi sympathizers and a racially insensitive organization. I think people have been painting this with a certain brushstroke, including ABC, Politico, numerous articles and media coverage of this here in this country that say immediately in the first paragraph that there is some type of correlation between white supremacy, between far-right radical
Why do you think
groups,
they do that?
Totally ignoring the fact that what these people are is standing up for liberty, regardless of partisanship. And when they address that and say, the truckers have stated we actually have zero allegiance to certain partisanship, we are simply here for liberty, then they try to counterbalance that. They bring up the fact that maybe that the 90%, as Laura brought up,
who are vaccinated,
as some type of indication of where they stand. And by the way, I was a federal attorney, which meant I was unionized. So I know what it's like to be falsely represented by a union that absolutely does not represent my views. But the notion that these guys are some type of fringe group, I think is belied by A, everything I just said, and B, Kayleigh, the $10 million in donations for GoFundMe and the almost $8 million raised since then by Give, Send, Go.
Well, I still want to know what they're going to spend the money on, because they're not going to give those donations back. And that's what Senator Ted Cruz said should happen. When you give all of that money to that organization, GoFundMe, to help those truckers, if it doesn't go there, they don't have the right to spend it on other things. They need to flow that money back to the people who gave it. I want to come back to you, though, and I had a thought on what I was asking you. So part of the reason why the media will, sort of couch it a certain way and make them look the way they do is because the White House doesn't want to talk about this.
Of course, the White House doesn't want to talk about this, and that's the problem, Harris. There's a moment where the political elites are so far out of touch with the people, and we are at that point. And we've seen those moments in history. The Tea Party, Brexit. Do you remember the Brexit vote? No one saw that coming. The election of President Trump over Hillary Clinton, no one saw that coming. The school board meetings where we're seeing parents vocalize their opposition to what the government is saying. We're at that point again where people are so fed up with the anti-scientific pandemic peddlers in the White House that they're saying we're going to make our voice heard through the honking of trucks, through showing up at school boards and standing up against mandates, not vaccinations, mandates.